fans, wherever you may be, welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Phil Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here to recap the Seahawks at Chargers victory on the road, Week 7. Seahawks now sit at 4-3 ahead of the NFC West. Keith?
Yeah,
it's an incredible
first place
for the
Seattle Seahawks. It was one thing to joke around and you know, the first week, especially when Seattle played on Monday and everybody lost on Sunday, and we're like, hey, they're in first place going into their first game. And then they won, so they were in first place again. But we're 7 weeks in. You know, we're getting into this season, and the Seahawks currently sit in first place in the West. And that is a phenomenal outcome, given how low expectations were coming into this year. And this game was fun. The Seahawks just outplayed, really on both sides of the ball, just outplayed a very talented and good Chargers team. Start
to finish.
Yeah.
Start to finish. And the way that they did it, Keith, it was like they went up early, you know, came out of the gate, went up early, 17 to nothing. And then the Chargers came back. Scored 14 points. It was now 17-14. And the way that the Seahawks responded to that was to have two key defensive stops, one right before halftime, and then we were kicking off at halftime. They got the ball, we stopped them right out of the gate, and then we kept scoring.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that for a while.
When it was 17-0, it felt like this team was rolling. But then the Chargers, well, they're a good team. They're a talented team, and they got themselves back in it, and it was 17-14. And you could feel that the game was teetering, right? It was right there.
They got the safety, you know, later on. And, you know, so there's a couple moments there where it could have just gone squishy, and it has in the past.
And it didn't.
For Seahawks teams.
But it didn't. You know, the Seahawks just responded. They responded with, you know, the second Goodwin reception for a touchdown. After the safety, they were able to, you know, get a field goal and then break off the 74-yard touchdown run by Walker that really just put the game away.
Yeah.
And it just left no hope of, you know, for them to come back. And it was just it was a great win.
It was a solid team win, all three phases.
Yeah.
You know, it really was. And, you know, it wasn't so much about them not performing well. I'm talking about the Chargers. It was more about Seattle just taking it to them.
Yeah.
You know, a good pass rush with a lot of pressures, disrupting timing. We had a couple of turnovers, a strip sack by Darrell Taylor, who's been playing better in the last couple of weeks. And then the interception by Ryan Neal, who had an outstanding game. Come to find out, he was sick, had an IV before the game. Right? He was sick as a dog. Sick as a dog, had an IV before the game, came out and played. He was the best player on the field.
At times he really was. And
I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Walker. We'll talk about that. But on the defensive side, he was the best player on the field. Uchenna Nwasu had a great game too. 11 pressures. But overall,
Darrell Taylor played well. Boye Mafe came up big a couple of times. I mean, it was a team effort. The defensive line had 4 balls batted down. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, because that can kill drives.
Yeah.
So,
and I think weren't all of those Uchenna Nwasu? I mean, didn't he have like, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of something
that
else.
part I don't know.
I guess that was Ryan Neal. Ryan Neal had 4 pass defense in this game, as well as the interception and 7 tackles.
Yeah, he had a phenomenal game. And honestly, the team needs him to be good because he is replacing, a Pro Bowler, a former All Pro, in Jamal Adams. They need him to step up and be good because the scheme is kind of designed around having that playmaker at strong safety. And if he's going to be at strong safety, he's got to be that playmaker. And the last couple of weeks, ever since, Jones was benched and Ryan Neal has come in, you've seen what a difference Ryan Neal can make. He's played very well.
No, absolutely. And, one of the things that there's a lot of positive things to take away from this game. But one of the things that I pulled out of this game that was probably the defining moment for me was the way that we handled the drive in the third quarter, where we had some adversity and they had that phantom motion thing against our center, Austin Blythe, and the team kind of went crazy. That the referees kind of lost control for a minute. Pete Carroll was upset. Geno Smith was fired up. So Pete Carroll calmed him down. Mm-hmm. He went, and Geno went back on a 3rd and long, like 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 15. Went back and hit Tyler Lockett on a bullet ball to pick up the first down, and Geno and they went on to, and that drive was 10 minutes, and they only got a field goal out of it, but it was a 10-minute drive.
That's the type of drive that in the last couple of years, teams have eaten up Seattle by running those kind of drives against them, and you just keep the offense off the field. There's no rhythm on offense because you can't get on the field because they just grind it out for like 10 minutes. And the Seahawks were up and they were able to do that. They were able to just continuously convert third downs, run the ball, keep, Justin Herbert and that offense off the field. It was great to see. We haven't seen Seattle be able to do that to a team in a few years.
And the fire. I just like the fire out of Geno Smith. He was upset, but then he contained that and actually took it to the other team. And I haven't seen that for a while. And it was great. And you mentioned 3rd down conversions. We're now 4th in the NFL in 3rd down conversion
They were
rate.
5 out of 9, which was 56%. And they just keep doing it. There's been a couple weeks where it hasn't worked.
Only had 9 third down opportunities in this game and scored that many points. Tells you everything you need to know about the efficiency of the way that they're operating.
Yeah,
and the big plays that they're generating.
Yeah, they were doing that, and they were just like, Ken Walker was averaged 7.3 yards per run. Even DJ Dallas, who at the beginning of the year we were thinking he's going to be a special teams guy and maybe play here or there because of the guys above him on the depth chart. But with 2 major injuries, he's getting pressed in, and he had 6 carries for 35 yards, which is 5.8 yards per carry. That's great. Yeah. And you compare that to the other side. Remember that for the first 5 weeks, the Seahawks run defense was as bad as you could possibly be. Austin Eckler, despite catching a lot of passes and having a fantastic day himself, only averaged 3.4 yards per run.
Yeah. He had 127 scrimmage yards, but 96 of those came from receiving. And even then he only averaged 8 yards reception, but 31 yards coming.
12 receptions, 12 receptions for 96 yards. That's a great day for a running back in the passing game.
Yeah, he was a total impact player for them.
Absolutely.
But that was it. I mean, Mike Williams had 7 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. Beyond that, there just wasn't much there. Justin Hubert had a 33 of 51. He threw the ball 51 times, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But a lot of those incompletions were badly missed. Had almost another interception mixed in with that. He was harassed all day, threw it high, threw it low, all over the place. It was mostly caused from Seattle.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure on him. They were forcing him to throw off platform. They were getting in there. I mean, they were hitting his arm as he was throwing. That happened a couple of times, including the strip sack by Darrell Taylor. Like, Justin Herbert didn't have a lot of clean pockets, and that's incredible considering the way this defense looked a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Uchenna Nwasu leads the NFL in quarterback pressures, Keith. 31.
That makes me happy. That's
second place.
That is a stat I didn't have, and that just makes me giddy.
Second place, Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons tied in second place with 30. Uchenna Nwasu's got 31. I think that's really important. That tells the tale of how this defense is emerging now. And we talked about before this game in our pregame podcast of what we could see out of this defense that would duplicate their effort against the Arizona Cardinals. And it's been so bad prior to that we just didn't know what we were going to see out of this defense in this game. What I think that we saw is a defense that I think we're going to be able to see for the rest of the year and possibly even get better. It was great.
You've got a situation where, I mean, the defense looked so bad the first, 5 weeks that these last 2 weeks feel like an aberration. And it's one thing to have a great game against Arizona when you change up some of your scheme and you throw things at them that isn't on tape, and they're not a good offense to begin with. And so you just destroy a bad offense in that situation. You go, okay, that's great. But all of what they did in this game against the Chargers was on tape from last week. So there was an opportunity for the Chargers to prepare for it, and it didn't matter. Plus, the Chargers are a far better offense.
Number 7 overall offense coming into the game.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, Keith. They only averaged 85 yards rushing prior to this game, and they got 50 yards out of this game. 55 yards, I think, to be exact, total rushing. So I'm going to put an asterisk on that for this defense because in the next game, we're facing the Giants, and the Giants have Saquon Barkley. And he's had an outstanding year. He had a great year, comeback year, kind of last year, coming back from an injury. And then this year, he's kind of been on the same track. And that's enabled them to kind of come back in games and be a good rushing team. Now, conversely, their defense is awful against the run. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But can we do that against the Giants next week? That's going to be a great game. The 6-1 Giants, who would have thought about that? The Seahawks have a great story this year. The Giants are another story that's out there. That's a real good story for them.
The idea that this week 8 matchup between Seattle and the Giants is actually a very meaningful, impactful game by two teams that look like playoff teams would have been an absolute joke before the season started. Right. Like no one would have believed that if that's what you said. You're like, nope, the Giants are going to be, have one loss and look like a definite playoff team. Seattle's going to be first place in their division when these two teams play. Like you would have just been laughed at so hard by anyone.
Well, I think that, we talked about the Seahawks being a 5-win team this year on our prediction show, and that was generous. And we were trying, to be realistic, but give them the benefit of the doubt, 5 wins. And
they're
we circled
now.
I know. We're
going to be wrong, Bill.
I know. Oh, it's tragic. It really is. You can tell by the way our enthusiasm is.
We're crushed.
That Giants game we circled on that schedule as being a game that we both thought we would take a win away from, and that was going to be one of the the easier games on the schedule, if you will. It was at home against the Giants. The Giants might be a little better than they were previously, but they're not going to be,
they're not going to be good.
Better. Right.
They were a terrible team last year.
Now, the Giants are one of those teams, when you dig just a little deeper, they are one of those teams at 6-1 that possibly could have been about 4-3.
Yeah.
Because they have 4 games where they have fourth quarter comebacks this season. They rallied in the second half of a 5th victory. So they're behind in games. Teams are,
They've
but
been
they are also
behind
have the
late in
ability.
games.
They also have the ability to come back, though. So I will hand them that.
Yep.
They've got some tenacity. I love their coach. It's a well-coached team, much better than it has been in the past.
It's so weird to think of the Jets and Giants, the two New York teams,
The Jets
and
are
saying
playing
the
well
word
too.
and saying the words "well coached" next to them, because those are the two of the most poorly coached franchises over the last like 5 years. But this year, both have one in their first year of the coaching staff, one in the second year. They've done a good job. The coaches are putting guys in position to do well, and they're winning. And that's all you can ask. And honestly, the Giants defense is better than advertised. It still has some flaws, but that's okay.
They've been able to generate stops.
Yep. And the offense has been far better than advertised. And, Daniel Jones they're not asking him to do a ton. They're really protecting him in terms of the way the scheme is. But they're trying to make it easy on him, but he's taken advantage of that, and he's reacted well to it. And the team's winning. It's hard to have a lot of complaints when your team is winning like that. So,
yeah, we'll review that.
Fun. This is gonna be a fun matchup this week.
Yeah, we'll review that matchup here at the end of the week. I wanted to keep talking a little bit about our defense because that was the star of this game. I thought our offense kept racking up points. There's no question about it, and we can talk about some individual performances on the offensive side. Man, that defense, I just feel like they just came up big over and over again. It's like they forced 5 punts, Keith. They held the Chargers on fourth down attempts, and they lost the ball on 2 of those. That's just like a punt or a turnover, when you do that. And Seattle's defense has 9 sacks in the last 2 games, and they're holding teams the last 2 games to 30% third down conversion rate. What's happening to this team? I mean, if this keeps going, Keith, the sky's the limit, especially in a weekend NFC conference.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you look at the offense has been great, and you said we'll get to that. The defense has turned it around, and they've turned it around by being more aggressive, right? We went into it in great deal last week, and I kind of don't want to go down that same road this week with our discussion, but this adaptation to go from 2 gapping to 1 gapping by the defensive line has really changed things. Poona Ford's had a couple of his best games of the season. You see Quentin Jefferson go from being abysmal to actually being pretty dang good the last couple of weeks. And then you see a guy like Darrell Taylor, who had been benched, and we thought, man, this guy looks like he's going to be a complete bust for this team because he just doesn't fit the scheme. Suddenly has 2 really big games. And one of the more impactful plays defensively in this last game was made by Darrell Taylor, which he had that strip sack and picked up the ball, had a big run back on the fumble recovery. That was just an athletic display by him. And those are always fun.
So it's crazy because you and I all off season, we kind of hyped up the defense a little bit. We came into the off season thinking the defense had done enough the last couple of years with the infusion of talent, and then this year with some speed, youth, etc., and new scheme, new coaches. They were excited, very competent. We just felt like the whole thing was going to come together, and then boom, it just didn't. It fell completely flat. It was horrendous the first 4 or 5 weeks. It was difficult. You saw glimpses of individual players, but that was it. Coordinated effort was not there. Now with this 2-week turnaround, it makes you question, like, how is it going to be going forward? Is this now what we're expecting to see week in, week out, regardless of opponent, or will they revert when it comes against certain teams or certain players or whatever?
I don't know, because what changed isn't now they're suddenly having success where they weren't before. They changed their methodology, right? They went from doing something which wasn't working. They switched it up. They tried something different, and it's working really well. And it's not a matter of, these are bad players, and that's why they were giving up all those yards. It was guys just weren't in position to make plays. Some of that is what was going on the field, and some of that was, a scheme that didn't necessarily fit the personnel. Mainly up front is what I'm talking about, on the defensive line. Now with what they're doing, they're scheming things up that fit the personnel better, and you're seeing the result. They're letting the guys do what they do well. And why would they stop doing that?
I think we're also seeing the newer and emerging players starting to come into their own a little bit. So I'm talking about Mike Jackson at corner, Tariq Woolen.
Yep.
Both those guys are just huge, and Kobe Bryant playing over 90% of the snaps. So and Ryan Neal coming in and taking over for Josh Jones. And then you said up front, putting those guys in position to be more successful, and Puna Ford and Quentin Jefferson, obviously, our linebackers, a lot less Cody Barton. Although Cody Barton did play a little bit more in this game than he had in Arizona, but he's not the guy that's like making the plays really. It's other guys in the system. I can't say enough about Kobe Bryant. I mean, the kid's a playmaker, and he's sticky in coverage now. I think he's playing a lot more confident. Ryan Neal just played completely lights out in this game on the defensive side. Shelby Harris played well. Uchenna Nwasu had a great game again. I mean, just a great game.
Well, that's one of the things that this defense did over the offseason. Well, that's what the front office did for the defense over the offseason, was they got faster. They got more athletic. Having a guy like Nwasu out there, I mean, the guy is just a beast, and he's really hard for teams to account for because he comes off that edge with both speed and power. And he can come inside, he can go outside, he can do a lot of different things. And that's why he's leading the NFL in pressures, because he's getting after quarterbacks and they're having a hard time accounting for him. Then you add Tariq Woolen and his speed. You add the way Mike Jackson and Kobe Bryant are playing coverage, right? And the size of the two outside guys in Jackson and Woolen. And you'll also notice that Diggs, whose play was left a lot to be desired over the first 4 or 5 games, suddenly is playing significantly better too. And I think that has to do with the fact that he's starting to trust the guys around him a little more. And he's starting to he's getting more help from Ryan Neal than he was getting from Jones. And so like things are starting to fall into place, and guys are starting to just really trust the guys around them enough to do what they got to do. And it's been fun. It
has been fun. I mean, that's a great word for it. All right. Let's talk about the offense a little bit.
Okay.
What did you see out of Geno Smith in this game that you liked?
That I liked? What I liked is that he didn't have his best game in terms of how sharp he was and how accurate he was, and it didn't really matter.
20 at 27 is pretty good.
No, it is, but I'm not talking about completion percentage. I'm talking about where the ball was placed. That interception early in the first half.
Yeah, he forced that thing in there.
It was behind him, and that's why it got deflected and up into the air, and that's why it got intercepted. It wasn't a good pass. And did it bother him? No. He came right back, showed that he had a short memory, and delivered the ball to Goodwin for a touchdown. And
that was a great touch throw in the back of the end zone. I mean, a great route by Goodwin, by the way. But
both of Goodwin's touchdowns,
that second one was amazing.
Were fantastic throws and great routes.
Yes.
Goodwin made it easy on Geno, but Geno threw it perfectly. But I'm not really talking about those passes. It's just some of the other ones. He had some that were off target. What we've come to expect after the first 6 games is for him to be a guy that's going to complete like 80% of his passes because he's extremely accurate. He didn't have his best stuff in this game, and it didn't matter.
I think the Chargers have a pretty decent secondary too. I mean, they're probably their best unit on defense as well as Samuel out there and Derwin James, and those guys, are in a good position most of the time. So how about
Khalil Mack is no slouch. That's one of the best.
He's no slouch, but I'm telling you, Charles Cross and Abe Lucas did a great job. We're going to talk about the rookies here coming up in just a little bit. Speaking of rookies, let's talk about Ken Walker.
Oh my God,
man, fun player to watch. You just know that anytime he touches the ball, he's a home run waiting to happen from any spot on the field. Crazy.
He does little things that just make me giddy. And the way he sets up blocks, he'll pause and make it look like he might cut it up inside in order to get a defender to commit into that hole before he bounces it outside. He doesn't just get up there and then he doesn't just come up and realize there's nothing there and bounce it outside instantly where he go and get tackled. He sets up the blockers. He knows how to read those and make the most out of them. His change of direction is just crazy fun. And then when he gets to the second level, that speed is as good as you'll see from a running back.
That touchdown was 22.09 miles per hour, fastest by a ball carrier this season.
Yeah.
And that's just as fast as DK Metcalf chasing down
was it Buda Baker?
Buda Baker last year.
Yeah, I mean, there was nobody that was going to catch him, and you knew it. He got
burst through that hole, man. It was over.
Yeah, once he got through, and you realized that it didn't matter whether guys had an angle on him or anything. He was gone.
And that's not a fluke play. That's repeatable. I mean, this guy's going to have plays like that in his career. This is just
over and over again.
The second one, I guess. The first one was last week where he had the 67-yarder or whatever it was.
He's a guy that's going to generate big plays because his combination of balance, agility, and speed. He's a special player.
You can add power to that, Keith, because in order to have that balance, you need to have that power. And that 11-yard touchdown run that he had showed that in the fight, and there was another run where he had he needed to pick up a first down and carried players on the defensive side on his back, and Abe Lucas helped push him along, and that was a fun play too.
Yeah, I mean, 7.3 yards per attempt per carry. That's crazy.
In addition, 23 carries. I mean, he was a workhorse.
Yeah. 168 yards. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of touches for one player, 23, because he didn't get a single catch out of the backfield. Like they didn't rely on him to do that. They didn't need him to do that.
I know going into the game when we were in our pregame podcast, we talked, or at least I talked about him maybe getting 15 to 18 touches and thought that was on the upper limit based on the fact that it was his second game and that DJ Dallas might have a few more touches. The guy's ready to go. He's just ready. He's pro ready rookie, and he's going to be rookie of the year. I mean, if he keeps this up, he averages 85 to 100 yards a game. This guy's going to be special. Have a special year.
I mean, DJ Dallas had 8 touches in this game. That's not. I mean, for a backup, especially a guy that's the backup to a backup when the season started, that's saying something. I mean, that's a lot of touches. And his 41 yards overall. I mean, that's a good outing for a backup running back.
It's a good outing for the entire team. Well over 200 yards.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads me to my conversation. I mean, we could talk about Goodwin and Lockett and those guys, and they did well. Nothing completely outstanding. It was the Walker show. But I want to get this conversation kind of focused back towards the impacts the rookie class has had on this team. And we can kind of go through the defense a little bit, but let's start on the offense, and let's start up front with the two tackles, Keith. They're playing outstanding to the point where we talk about them almost every week, and like we're somewhat surprised, and it's just we're confounded about it. But
we're not.
It's becoming
I'm not surprised.
a situation where it's now a regular thing.
It's literally been every week that they've been good. Now there's been hiccups here and there. They're rookies. You're going to have that. But overall, you look at over the first 7 games, they've been fantastic. And Lucas has been just this revelation at right tackle. And like this is the best offensive line the Seahawks have had since 2013. And this is the baseline.
This is the first 7 games of their career.
Yeah, it's mostly the tackles that are doing that. And it's just great to see. Those 2 rookie tackles are gonna make Geno Smith look good. They're gonna make Ken Walker look good. And right now, honestly, I don't think those 2 guys need any help to look good because they're both playing really well, but they still will make Geno Smith and Ken Walker look good.
The player in his second year is Curhan had an instrumental block on that Ken Walker 74-yard scamper too. I just thought I'd throw that out.
Jake Curran came in and basically they had to pull Haynes out. It was the independent spotter up in the booth. Message down to the refs that said, and they said escort him to the sideline. And Curhan had to come in. I mean, he's a tackle playing guard, a position that you and I both thought that he would excel in.
That's very true.
And he came in and instantly did really poorly.
He did.
Gave up a couple. Gave up a sack. Had a penalty. Whiffed on another block. It looked bad. But once he settled in a little bit, you started to see why he was a starter last year and what the team likes about him and all of that. It took him a bit, but it's hard to come in when you've been sitting and you don't expect to play.
But by the end there, he was putting guys on his back, on their backs. He was a force out there in the running game. So let's go. We talked about Walker already. We talked about the 2 tackles. Let's go to the other side. Boye Mafe is now starting for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's setting the edge better than anybody else on the team, I think, and making plays that are difference maker plays, but not on his stat line per se.
Yeah,
he's kind of gumming things
tackles.
up. Yeah, he's kind of gumming things up on the edge. He's really making a difference out there, at least in the last 2 games. And he's a guy I want to kind of key in on this next couple weeks, because I think that he's just not getting any credit for what he's doing, but I think he's doing a lot to really be disruptive in there. And setting that edge is just a very important thing in this defense. You're not necessarily going to make that tackle, but you're going to enable another player to come in and make that tackle.
Yeah, because you're going to force the play inside where you've got help. And this is when you see Jordan Brooks, Ryan Neal, and if he's in the game, Cody Barton make a lot of tackles because the running back's getting funneled to you. And so Maffei's got to do that against the run. And he's also got to either cover or get upfield and get pressure on the quarterback against the pass. And there's a lot of responsibilities being put on him. And so far, I think he's responded well.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned the run part of it is because that was the most unexpected part of his game. He was a guy he was going to be a tool. He was going to be a third down specialist. He was going to rush the passer. That was it.
And cover.
They're asking him to do so much more right now, right out of the gate. It's just, it adds to that, the phenomenal draft that we had, which is kind of the way I wanted to finish this segment. But and then you look at Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant is leading the league in forced fumbles. He's in on, quite a few tackles per game. He's a sure tackler. He doesn't miss tackles. And his coverage has been really sticky. And
recently.
And I just think it's just, he's gained so much confidence.
He had a rough first couple of weeks and he got benched, and then he earned himself some more playing time and he responded. It's not unlike Tariq Woolen going out the first game of the preseason and getting torched. And I guess what? He took his lumps. He learned from it. He came out, and now he's playing at a Pro Bowl level. I like what I'm seeing. I think these guys have shown that they're smart, they're coachable, they're going to do the little things. They clearly study tape and all of that well, and it's just a great pair of players. And I kind of want to throw Mike Jackson in there, because even though he's not a rookie by any means,
he had not three starts. He played in 3 games prior to this year.
Yeah, but he's also, I think he was been on practice squads for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But so yeah, he's not a rookie. He doesn't really fit that. But this is his first real playing time. Because yeah, he'd played in 3 games before. He played in a game and a half, and then was a broken leg last year before he got off, and then the team had to move on last season. But now he's come in, he's earned the starting job by having a great camp in preseason, and it was rough the first couple of weeks, and he has grown into deserving that role of being the second starter out there.
One of the things, and you mentioned Diggs playing better, more competent in the last couple of weeks. One of the things that helps those guys is to have some pressure up front, and it kind of goes all in hand together. So I'm sure that helps him as well in coverage. So I kind of want to end this thing. We're kind of getting running on a little bit. Is just the phenomenal overall draft that we had in April with John Schneider.
We mentioned 6 starters total, 3 on offense, 3 on defense.
Seattle Seahawks are starting 6 rookies, and we're in first place in the NFC West after week 7.
And there's guys that part of this draft class that haven't got their chance yet.
Yeah.
We saw in the preseason what Derek Young offers as a prospect. Now, he needs to work on catching the ball a little better and that kind of stuff. But his athleticism and size looks fun. And we had a very brief look at the pass rusher from the 7th round, whose name
Tyreek Smith.
Yeah, Smith. And so, you kind of think about that, and you're like, he looked really sharp early on, and then his injury knocked him out. There's possibility that this team could get. They've already got 6 starters out of this draft. They may get 2 other useful.
And Bo Melton's still sitting out there. We just don't know about that. But.
Yeah. So this could turn out to be an all-timer class if those guys actually.
I think even stand pat right now, 6 starters out of this is an all-time class. So anyway, great show. It's a great win. We talked about before this show, the last show, how this would kind of define which way the season was going to go. Are we a pretender or are we a contender? And this clearly puts us in the latter bucket. We're now a contender. The blinders are off. We're full go at this point as far as trying to win, trying to find out what we can do this season. Now, granted, we may not be a Super Bowl team. I don't think that necessarily matters right now. I think the team is focused on what it has right in front of it and getting these 6 draft picks integrated into the team, making the team better. The future is so bright, even with Geno Smith at quarterback. We're winning, and I don't see any reason to
You and I predicted 5 wins. The national media was predicting 2 to 3. They've got 4 now, and they're in first place.
Yeah. And if they go 6-5 for the rest of the way,
they're a playoff
we're at
team.
10 wins.
Yeah. I mean, Pete Carroll deserves a ton of credit.
Actually,
and I know
be 6-4.
There's a large contingent of the fan base that doesn't want to give Pete Carroll credit for anything.
I think
but he deserves
the tide is turning.
He deserves a ton of credit for the way this season has gone.
And
he's proven me wrong.
I think for the way other seasons have gone as well.
Yeah.
I think it vindicates some of the ways that he's been coaching, some of the ways that he treated Russell Wilson and allowed that offense to operate and put Russ in the best position to be successful. I think that's evident now that's what was going on and what happened. We need a little bit more out of that to kind of figure that out completely. But now that we've seen Gino operate in this thing, and Waldron's kind of got the reins off on this offense, everything seems to be operating, really nice and smooth. And it's just it's fun. Like, and football is fun again.
Those Broncos draft picks just keep getting better. It's possible that the Seahawks could be in position to draft their quarterback of the future without losing, because the Broncos are losing for us.
Which is crazy. And it could very well be, a top 3 pick. Right now it's number 5 overall.
Yeah. That offense looks bad.
And they have a top 5 defense, which is crazy. They've only allowed 8 touchdowns all year on their defense.
Yeah.
But they've only scored 5 or 6.
Yeah. That offense looks so bad. I expect them to turn it around. Russ is too good for this to persist throughout the entire season. But now,
they might be firing their coach before Russ comes back.
Well, yeah, they might. Right? I mean, Russ
Mike
is out
Silver
now,
was talking about the coach being fired if they lose against the Panthers. Was it the Panthers? I can't remember who they're playing in London this week. But that's not good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they hired Hackett to get Rodgers. That was the play. They hired Hackett to get Rodgers. They didn't get Rodgers, so they went out and traded.
So they got a hack instead.
They went out and traded for Russ, and it's just such a bad fit, such a bad combination.
I don't know if there's anything inherently wrong with Hackett as a person, as a coach. He's just not ready. It's clear that he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to call plays. He wasn't ready to have the team completely on his shoulders. Just not ready for that moment yet. He'd only had 4 or 5 years of NFL experience at all in any position. And 3 of those came in the last 3 years as an offensive coordinator for Green Bay. Now, granted, that's a great position and good experience, but you don't have any head coaching experience. They brought in a guy at defensive coordinator that had not been a defensive coordinator in the NFL before, and only a couple years of experience. Their other position coaches are all fairly new at this thing. And so I think that's a big, big part of what's happening right now. Maybe they can get it turned around. I think, it's clear to me now, being removed from the Russell Wilson situation, that Russ had a hand in both the success and the difficulties that Seattle had with offensive coordinators in this system. And now that he's moved on, he wanted to have full reins of let Russ cook. And I'm not sure that he's that quarterback. And at least, it looks like he's not that quarterback at this stage of his career at 34 years old. And anyway, not looking great for Denver. And I wish him success after this season, but not during this season. I want those draft picks. I want them to be as high as possible because Seattle's going to keep winning. And right now, Keith, if we were to draft, we would draft 23rd in the NFL draft right now.
Yeah, I'm not sad about it. I'd rather have the team win. I'm not a let's lose for draft picks guy.
I'm with you. This feels so much better.
You go out and you win games that you can win. And if you can't win games, then you deserve a high draft pick. But you don't tank. I hate hate the concept of tanking.
Me too.
As
So
much
to
as
speak.
as much as I was like, it would be best for this team to be bad and get a quarterback, because I did not think that Geno Smith was going to be this crazy once ever in the NFL guy that went from being terrible to good over the course of 10 years by not playing. I just don't.
Yeah, you should go read a Monday Morning Quarterback article from Peter King that came out. I don't know, it was a little interview with Geno. It's fantastic.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I say like once ever. Listeners, if you're still listening to this, go look up Rich Gannon and his career. It's not quite the same because he didn't spend as long as a backup, but he was considered kind of a washout. And then he became a guy that won a Super Bowl and looked like the best quarterback in the league for a couple of years. And maybe that's the path of Geno Smith.
Well, he's certainly the best comeback story right now in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
There's just no question.
And there's no question.
He's probably a top 5 candidate right now for MVP. And if he continues this trajectory and we get in the playoffs and we happen to do something,
he should be. Like, honestly, he should be in the conversation. Does he win it? I don't know. But he should be in the conversation right now because he's playing well enough.
Yeah.
To do it.
And the stats bear that out.
And honestly, how messed up would it be if Geno Smith gets MVP votes?
Even a single vote.
Even a single vote, because Russ has never gotten one. And that was part of why he wanted out. Because he was thinking about his legacy and Hall of Fame chances. And if he's not getting MVP votes, he was worried he wasn't going to get that chance. And he didn't think he was ever going to get them under Pete Carroll because of the defense and running game philosophy. And if Geno Smith gets one before Russ, that is going to be so ironic. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to eat that up. I love Russ. I do, but I'm just going to eat this up.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I hate to pile on Russ because, he's a superhuman, but it's, anyway, we've been living in this box for a while, and it's good to now be out of the box and see reality from a different perspective. And so that's what's going on this year. It feels great. I enjoy this team, this young team. It's an exciting team. It's a fast team.
Fun.
They play hard for Pete. Pete's having a great time again. It's like crazy.
I love it when it's fun. And this team has been really fun. And you're a Trailblazers fan. They're up 4-0.
Yeah, I know.
And they may not be able to keep that up, but they look fun.
They look fun too.
And
they're young and youthful, and they like to run now, and they like to get out on fast breaks. How long has it been since we've seen a Trailblazer team? Sorry, folks, going off a little bit. run on fast breaks and stuff.
Yep. I know that you like your team, but they're fun. This may not last for them. They may not continue to be on this run that they're on right now, but it's fun. It's like the Seattle Mariners. Like, they made the playoffs. Which was great. They finally broke that. But after, in mid-May, when they were 14 games back and they looked awful, and then suddenly something clicked and they started winning and they started having fun. And there was just this youthful excitement about that team. And the same way for the Seahawks right now. All these young players, they're playing well, they're playing fast, they are having fun. And it makes it fun for us to watch.
Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
So go have fun watching this next game coming up. We're doing one more show before then. It's the Giants preview show coming up. I think we'll probably put it out on Thursday or Friday. So hope you enjoy that. If you can share this show, if you enjoy it, please do so. Subscribe. You know where to find us if you're watching it this long. So we appreciate you. You can find Keith where you can find Keith on Twitter. He's there. You can find me as well. And so until we see you next time, take care and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWSeahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.